All right, we are back. Dynasty Trades in 5. I'm Clay.
I'm Shane.
And I am not a 6th round running back that rose all the way to RB1 status.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to do Elijah Mitchell. The other night I mentioned how the subscribers asked for Tyreek Hill. Thanks again for that. Elijah Mitchell came in second place, so we said that we were going to do him next. So let's get into a trade as always. Start this off. Where you at, Elijah Mitchell versus the 110? 12 team super flex, start 10 PPR.
So Elijah Mitchell he's one of those players where feet to the fire, that's when it's really gonna balls to the wall. Like you're gonna decide if you really want to make a move on him. I can easily sit here and go, I'll give up the 110 for him, because I think I would give up the 110 for him. But if actually put in my face, if someone shoved it in my face and they're like, you have to take it, I don't know if I would take it right in the face there. It's Clay. But I like to think I would take him over the 110. That's a fair price considering his risk.
I'd go the pick only because I think I could probably add a small piece to the pick and get a better running back. And, we've talked before about running back theory and how you want to roster construct. So I don't feel as confident with Mitchell, but if I could then take that 110 and add a second and get Nick Chubb or something like that, then I'd be okay getting a better running back. So that'd be the only logic, is I could maybe move around the board, try to take my shots at other players, but I just want the liquid pick. Ask me in 3 months, I may go, hey, if I could trade that player that I took at 110 for Elijah Mitchell because it fits my roster construction, then I'll do it, because there's a chance you get stuck making that 110 and it's a wide receiver and you need a running back.
Let's throw one more in. How about Elijah Mitchell or Amon-Ra St. Brown?
I've become an Amon-Ra St. Brown convert.
Really?
Pretty even, to be honest with you. I mean, I can see taking others either side, and I don't want to say, it's roster construction, but I think I'd look at it and go, what do I really need on my roster? Because I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown is obviously a wide receiver 1, but I think he's at worst in the wide receiver 3 range, and I could see Mitchell being a running back 2, which is kind of equal in my eyes.
So here's the thing. Let's say the Lions take a receiver in the 1st and the 3rd. Can you then get Amon-Ra St. Brown, or can you get Elijah Mitchell for Amon-Ra St. Brown?
No.
So would you really want to do that trade? It's really just a bet on what the Lions do. You know what I mean? I think that's a cool trade, because you could lose that trade if they take 2 receivers.
Kyle Shanahan could just decide he's going to draft another running back in the 4th or 5th round, 6th round. Like, you don't feel safe any round with Kyle Shanahan running backs. Yeah. Like, he could get an undrafted free agent, and you're like, I don't know.
I think that moves to the Mitchell value discussion right there. Yeah. You just hit the point.
Okay, so yeah, let's get right into it. So that was going to be my question is, Mitchell, a lot of people reach out to us asking, what do I do with Elijah Mitchell? He's going here in a startup, here in a startup. His value is all over the place, but the connotation is mostly negative. So is that the reason? Is it the wild card nature of that backfield and Shanahan? I'll stop there. Scott, go ahead. You go first.
Well, I mean, you have to respect the fact that the guy played 11 games last year and had 220 plus touches, which is pretty strong. I mean, if you just prorate that over 16 games, which you can't just say, oh, well, if you can do it for 10 games, you can do it for 16. It's tough at running back. Yeah. But that is a workload very similar to like the first couple years of Josh Jacobs. It actually looks very similar to the first couple years of Josh Jacobs. But probably if you're talking about how he was used last year, what's his ceiling from a receiving standpoint? Maybe 25, 30 catches. Again, similar to Josh Jacobs. Like, he's going to get the work. It's just going to be dependent on the offense, on the touchdowns. And similar to Josh Jacobs, he was injured a couple times. 2 different injuries he dealt with last year. So I think he's actually pretty similar. He's not similar from like a draft pedigree standpoint. Clearly, Jacobs was a 1st round pick. Mitchell was a 6th. No one expected him to be here after a year, but he's here. I think you can almost throw his draft capital out at this point. He's the guy. He's the guy until it's taken away from him. Now, what does that mean inside the San Francisco front office? Does that mean they're literally looking every year for another Elijah Mitchell because they expect this Elijah Mitchell to fade away? That could be. I would tend to say, if you just look at history on the San Francisco running backs, if there's ever a peak at any of the times for you to sell the one that's has the market value. Just do it. I think you just kind of sell based on the fact that you've gotten what you got out of him. You got last year's production. I think Shane hit the nail on the head. At best, he's probably never going to crack like top 10 running back numbers, or unless he just has an amazing touchdown season.
And that's the thing. You can make a living off of selling running backs or players that, hit that you don't believe in. And yeah, every once in a while, you're going to have a James Robinson who crushes for a full season. And you're going to be like, man, I really wish I held on to him all year. Except that, the Jaguars go, yeah, we're good. We're going to draft a running back to replace him immediately. Yep. And you needed an act of God, an injury to Travis Etienne for James Robinson to still hold value. So you can make a cottage industry just off training guys like that. Like same thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown when you brought him up earlier. Like they're both in that mold.
Yeah, it's the classic definition of your Twitter name, Shane, process over players, right? It's a San Francisco running back. The correct process is probably to get out if you can for the right price. If you're selling Elijah Mitchell, we talked about what a pick value could be, what a pivot could be in terms of a wide receiver. If you're selling him, what is your strategy? I mean, tearing down from Elijah Mitchell and getting another running back, that doesn't really work, right? So is it a positional pivot, like I mentioned, or selling him for straight picks? Just talk to me about that real quick.
Yeah, I'm trying to pivot off by position because we've talked about this before. Like, I never really want to move running back to running back because they're all hand grenades. And I can't imagine that anyone's going to give me anything that's more secure than Mitchell in a trade because they're going to be taking on that same risks that I just had. But at least at wide receiver, like the one you said, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a wide receiver in that tier, at least I can justify being a pivot because I need it positionally.
I mean, I think if you're looking to sell him, you look to sell him for the 110 and Khalil Herbert, the 110 and Dearness Johnson. Like, get that dart throw back.
Get a body
your
thrown
roster.
In,
yeah, keeps your roster construction in line. I mean, if I'm selling a running back in this range, the RB2 range, I'm always looking to backfill with another player that, you're not going to get more security, more touches, more value. But, give me a guy like those two that I mentioned. They're pretty much cemented on their depth charts already, whether they're going to be the backup or the third running back. Like, they're probably going to make the 53-man roster. They're an injury away from seeing touches, 2 injuries away from maybe having like standalone RB2 games, just like Mitchell. So I think it's just principle. That's the process part, is don't take the 110 straight up. Literally, I look on people's benches and I'm just like, okay, the difference between getting this deal done or not getting the deal done is what running back can they throw me back in the trade.
Sony Michel on the 110, something like that.
A body. Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Okay. What about, so let's talk tiering up. If that's doable in your league, mileage may vary in terms of how much people like Elijah Mitchell. Would you rather have Elijah Mitchell and let's call it 107 or Cam Akers?
Elijah Mitchell on the 107.
Yeah, agree. That's not much. That's not enough of a tier up, but I think that just articulates right there the difference between probably how Shane and I view these running backs versus how maybe the open market does. A lot of people would go, oh, I have Akers in the top 8. And Shane and I are sitting here going like, well, there's probably not a huge difference between him and Elijah Mitchell. So yeah, give me the free 107.
What about if we're doing a wide receiver pivot, and then maybe I'll do another tier up, but if we're doing a wide receiver pivot, is Bateman kind of in that same group as Amon-Ra St. Brown? That's kind of like a kind of a wash positionally.
I'd
like
say
Bateman more.
I'd say less. Because Bateman didn't show anything in his rookie season, whereas Amon-Ra St. Brown, you can make whatever excuses or give him, say this is why it happened. It happened. And when we look at things like PFF grade, like my co-host Jacob on one of my other shows, Fantasy Intervention, pointed out to me, it's like every wide receiver with a rookie score by PFF in his range has been basically a hit. It's kind of hard to overlook stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to pivot to a wide receiver and you can't get one that's clearly more valuable, because I think if you're going to target guys that are in like the top 20 of ADP at receiver, you're not going to be able to get them for Mitchell. People covet those type of receivers too much. But I think if you're going to go after somebody like Bateman, I don't mind like a Bateman plus Ramondre Stevenson type trade, or Bateman plus, I don't know, Kareem Hunt, something like that, where the other team thinks they're giving away the lesser running back, but you're getting the 2-for-1, where you're still probably getting a decent shot that your running back could be what Elijah Mitchell is, and you're getting a free receiver. But no, I wouldn't trade him for a random wide receiver 3 because I think you're then you're not gaining any positional value at the receiver spot either.
Okay, we talked about what his sell price would be. What would you buy him for? We're obviously not super high on him, but what are you gonna buy him for?
Well, how about the 110, 111? I'll give you a couple seconds for him. I could be convinced to go up to like 108 maybe before the draft. Probably not once the draft is actually in effect, because then I'll probably fall in love with a first round wide receiver there.
So back in first, otherwise you throw a couple seconds at him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not probably buying with picks. I would say I kind of like the idea that you threw out, but deconstruct it. I mean, if I have Akers, if I have Dobbins, if I have Gibson, I'm fine going to Mitchell plus. I mean, obviously I want to get a 23 first, but I'll give back a piece because I'm sitting there going like, I don't really care about Dobbins versus Elijah Mitchell. You know what I mean? I'll take the loss there if I'm going to be able to color up at another spot, whether it's another position or it's at a pick. I think a one buy, I would say, for Mitchell that you can get done. I would take Ezekiel Elliott over Elijah Mitchell all day. And I think you can probably get like a second on top of that. That would be the one target outside that's valued lower than him that I would take over him. So if I can get the juice, then I'm going to do it.
All right, guys, quick show. Wanted to keep it nice and tight for you. Thanks again to the subscribers for offering up ideas for new players. We've done a lot of players at this point. May need a refresh. So if you have any ideas that you want to throw to us, want one of these quick hitters, just let us know in the comments of this show. If you're not a subscriber yet, thank you for watching this one. If we earned your business, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Check out the channel, and you can see all these videos that we've done in the past that I'm talking about. Hopefully we'll be in the Listener League startup soon. We're at 993. Talk to you later.